My girlfriend of 5 years said, "I'm not attracted to you anymore. I need an alpha." I replied, "I understand." Then I accepted the promotion she wanted her new alpha boyfriend to get at our company. When she saw me in the corner office, her face went pale as she realized I was now her new boss. My girlfriend of 5 years, Tina, ended our relationship last Tuesday. We lived together, so she had the decency to do it face to face, but that's the only decency she showed. She sat me down on the sofa in the living room of the house I own and gave me a speech that she had clearly been rehearsing. She told me she loved me as a person, but she wasn't in love with me anymore. She said that she had been feeling for a while that something was missing, and then she delivered the killer line. "I'm just not attracted to you anymore, David," she said, looking at me with a sort of clinical pity. "I've realized I need a real alpha, someone who takes charge, a true leader." The insult was so direct, so condescending that I didn't even feel anger at first. It was just clarifying. I've always been a quiet person. I'm not the loudest guy in the room. I don't brag. I don't feel the need to dominate conversations. I lead by example through competence. I solve problems. I build things that work. I had always thought she understood and valued that about me. Clearly, I was wrong. She saw my quiet confidence as weakness. I didn't argue with her. I didn't get defensive. I just looked at her and waited for the other shoe to drop because I knew there was more. She took my silence as an invitation to continue. She confessed that she had been getting close to someone else, a guy from our company, Chad. Context: Tina, Chad, and I all work at the same large engineering firm. I'm a senior systems architect. I design the back-end frameworks for our most complex projects. Tina is a project manager, so we work in adjacent spheres. And Chad is a senior sales strategist. He's exactly the kind of guy you'd picture when you hear the word alpha used unironically. He's loud, overtly confident, wears flashy suits, and is great at giving slick presentations. He's all charisma. The substance, however, has always seemed questionable to me. Tina went on and on about Chad's ambition and his unstoppable drive, and then she revealed the real core of it. For the last 2 months, a new major position had been open at the company, Director of Strategic Integration. It's a huge step up, a leadership role designed to bridge the gap between the technical teams, project management, and sales strategy. The new director would essentially be the boss of all 3 of our departments. Tina told me with a smug sense of excitement that Chad was the leading candidate. She admitted she'd been helping him craft his proposals, feeding him inside information from the project management side to make his pitch look stronger. She was completely invested in his success. She saw him getting this job as their launch pad. They were going to be the new power couple of the office. As she was telling me all this, I just sat there. And when she was finally done, after she had thoroughly laid out why I was no longer adequate for her, I looked at her and said in a perfectly level voice, "I understand." She seemed a little surprised by my lack of emotion, but she took it as acceptance. She said she would need a week or 2 to find a new place. I just nodded. Here's what she did not know. While she and Chad were plotting his rise, senior management had been having serious doubts about him. They saw what I saw, a lot of flash, but not a lot of depth. His strategies looked good on a PowerPoint slide, but they often ignored critical technical limitations, which my team would then have to scramble to fix. Because of this, about a month ago, the senior vice president, a man named Marcus, had quietly approached me. He told me that while I wasn't the obvious choice from a sales perspective, I was the only candidate who truly understood how all the pieces of the company actually fit together. He said the company needed a leader who could deliver results, not just promises. He offered me the director position. I was hesitant. I enjoy the hands-on work. I'm an architect, a builder. I was not sure I wanted to get into senior management and politics. I told Marcus I needed some time to consider it. I didn't mention it to Tina because our relationship was already feeling strained and I didn't want to add a complex work dynamic to the mix. My hesitation, my desire to think things through logically, was the very thing she saw as a lack of ambition. But after her speech, after she called me weak and paraded her new alpha in front of me, all my hesitation vanished. Turning down the promotion now would validate her entire twisted narrative. Accepting it was the only move I had left. It was no longer about career progression. It was about self-respect. The next morning, I walked into Marcus's office. He looked up, surprised to see me. "David," he said, "what's on your mind?" "Marcus," I replied, "I've considered your offer. If it's still on the table, I accept." A huge smile of relief spread across his face. "That's the best news I've heard all month," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "We were hoping you'd come around. The official announcement will go out in a company-wide email on Monday morning. Welcome aboard, Director." I spent the rest of the day in a state of calm focus. When I got home, Tina was there already packing some of her things. She was humming. She told me she was going to have a celebratory dinner with Chad on Monday night after the big announcement. She even had the audacity to pat my shoulder and say, "Don't worry, David. I've already spoken to Chad. Once he's director, he's going to make sure you're assigned to some of the most important new projects. He really values your technical skills." I just looked at her and nodded. "That's thoughtful of you," I said. "This weekend is quiet. I've moved her things from the master bedroom into the guest room. She thinks it's just me needing space. She is blissfully unaware of the email that is scheduled to hit the entire company's inbox at 9:00 on Monday morning. She thinks she's hitching her wagon to a rising star. She has no idea she's about to be introduced to her new boss. Update 1. Monday morning arrived with a strange sense of inevitability. The atmosphere in the house was thick with a tense, awkward silence. Tina, however, seemed to be floating on a cloud of smug satisfaction. She was more talkative than she had been in months, going on about the celebratory dinner she and Chad had planned for that evening. As we were getting ready for work, she stood in the doorway of the bathroom while I was shaving and gave me a piece of unsolicited advice. "You know, David," she started, her tone dripping with fake concern. "You're a great architect, probably the best in the company, but you just don't have that leadership spark. You should really learn from Chad. Watch how he commands a room. It might help you in the long run." I just rinsed my razor, wiped my face, and looked at her in the mirror. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. We drove to the office in separate cars, a routine we had started a few weeks ago as the distance between us grew. I got to my desk at 8:30, cleared out a few old files, and prepared for the day. Tina was at her workstation, chatting excitedly on the phone, no doubt with Chad. At exactly 9:00 a.m., a new email notification popped up on my screen. It did on everyone's. The subject line was simple. Announcement: New Director of Strategic Integration. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I watched Tina. I saw her click open the email, her face alight with triumphant expectation. I saw her eyes scan the first line, and then I watched as every ounce of color drained from her face. She went from tanned and glowing to a pale, sickly white in about 3 seconds. Her mouth fell slightly open. She blinked and reread the email. Then she reread it again. From across the office, I could see her hands start to tremble. She slowly lifted her head and her eyes scanned the room until they locked onto mine. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just held her gaze with a perfectly neutral expression. The sight of me, calm and already back to work, seemed to be what broke her trance. She shot up from her chair and marched towards my desk. Several heads turned to watch her. She was moving with so much force that she was practically vibrating with rage. She stopped in front of my desk, her fists clenched. "What is this?" she hissed, her voice low and shaking. "This is some kind of joke, right? How did you do this? You stole this from him." Her voice was rising in volume, and she was causing a scene. People were openly staring now. This was the moment. This was where the new dynamic would be forged. I slowly stood up, looking down at her as she was a few inches shorter than me. I kept my voice quiet, forcing her to lean in slightly to hear me, a subtle power move. "Tina," I said calmly, "this is neither the time nor the place for this conversation. My door is always open, but I expect you to conduct yourself professionally. We have a project status meeting scheduled for 10:00. I'll see you in the main conference room. Then we can discuss your concerns about the project pipeline at that time." The color returned to her face in a hot, angry flush. She was speechless. She had come over to confront her ex-boyfriend, the man she had just deemed a weakling. She was now being addressed as a subordinate by her new boss. She stood there for a few more seconds, sputtering before she seemed to realize that everyone was watching her unprofessional outburst. She turned on her heel and stormed back to her desk.